Hey, Pride Detroit Direct subscribers. Welcome to, I guess, the final edition of our Pride Detroit Direct post-game shows of the 2023 season. Here, obviously, at Santa Clara after the Detroit Lions 34-31. Devastating loss in the NFC Championship game to the 49ers. I'm here, Jeremy Reisman, with Erik Schlitt, now a good 4 hours after the game has ended. Been a long night. Tough night, obviously, for Lions fans. We are no exception. It's been a tough night for all of us. Given, the Lions had a 17-point lead at halftime. We were all dreaming of our Las Vegas trip and, maybe even thinking about booking some flights. And it all came crashing down in a pretty, I hate to use the word traumatic because that gives it a little bit more power than maybe it is, but felt a little traumatic tonight.
Well, it was an unfortunate representation of a struggle that they've had all year, and they had a problem with the third quarter.
Yeah,
the third quarter has been an issue.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked about it, we've joked about it, and Kyle Shanahan is well known for his ability to make adjustments, and it seemed like he made some adjustments in the second half. The Lions struggled to counter those adjustments, and they they made a couple mistakes, and then they let them back in it. And when they let them back in, it became anybody's game. And then it became, once it was tied, it was just who's going to make or the fewest amount of mistakes from that point on out. And the Lions had a couple more mistakes that they made, and the 49ers didn't. And that's really the difference in my mind. It just, you let it do a couple mistakes to let them back in, and then you do a couple more, and then that's it. Can't come back.
Yeah, and it's interesting because you're right. Like the third quarter has obviously been a problem for this team for the long time. But when we ever asked Dan about it, he'd say, "Yeah, we've had some issues in the third quarter, but we're pretty darn good in the fourth quarter."
Yeah, they've been a real good fourth quarter team.
And I think that was kind of one of the interesting things Dan said after the game, because what this team has been so good about this year is when the adversity hits in a game, they're able to pull themselves out of it.
Yeah.
And they weren't able to do that in this game. It seemed to snowball and snowball and snowball in a way that we really haven't seen with this franchise until maybe the first year of Dan Campbell. And so that was particularly disheartening to see because, they San Francisco scores, they get within one score, and immediately the very first play is Jahmyr Gibbs' fumble.
Yeah. I completely agree with what you're saying. At the same time, this is arguably the best team they've faced all year. Well, right? Yeah. Like this is the best team in the NFC.
Yep.
And we've talked about it going in. They were the most complete team. I mean, they were favored by over a touchdown. Like, this is a good team that was healthy, and they were a very formidable opponent, and you can't let them get back in the game. And that fourth quarter, yeah, you're absolutely right. I do think normally we've seen them come back, but against a team this balanced, this complete, it wasn't to be.
Yeah, and I think this is going to naturally lead us into the conversation about fourth downs, which we ultimately have to talk about. But I think part of the ways the Lions have been able to pull themselves out of some of these tailspins before is their aggressiveness. Sure. Is their, keeping your foot on the gas type of thing, so that like you don't cower, you don't let a team get back in you because you're playing conservative ball. And I think that was probably at least part of the thought behind what Dan Campbell did. He defended his decision. Yeah. He stood by his decision, saying that, he thought he didn't want the game to tilt in his favor. He wanted to take back control of the game. Now, I think most people agreed with the first one. It's a 4th and 2. It's 48-yard field goal. You're up. I mean, I shouldn't say most people. A lot of people agreed because you're up by 14. You have a little bit of wiggle room in terms of your ability to be aggressive. But it felt like maybe that second one, the game was spiraling out of control at that point. You hadn't scored a second half point at that point. You were now losing by 3. Stop the bleeding and get a field goal.
Yeah.
I'll tell you where I fall in a second, because there's a lot going on here, and it's not. I think the first thing that I want to make clear is this is not an easy decision. This is not a black and white, like, oh, he should have done this, oh, he should have done that. It is obvious he's an idiot or he's incredibly smart. Like, these are the type of decisions that, I mean, when you look at some of these analytical charts, they're like a plus or minus of 2% win percentage.
Yeah.
And we have to remember, like, 2% win percentage is not a lot. I mean, those little things can add up, of course, but in the grand scheme of things, and I think someone pointed this out, like, Josh Reynolds dropping a pass has a bigger win percentage swing.
Yeah.
Jahmyr Gibbs fumbling the ball has a bigger win percentage scheme. Different.
Yeah.
So that, I think, needs to be highlighted, but I'm curious on your thoughts on some of these individual decisions here.
Well, which one you want to talk about? The first one?
Yeah, let's talk about the first one. So the Lions are up 14. They pass on either 46 or 48-yard field goal for an opportunity to go for it on 4th and 2.
I think with that one, I agreed with it, and they were gashing them on the ground, and so I fully expected that to be a run, and maybe that's what they thought the 49ers were expecting that too, and then that's why they went into a play pass, but I thought the 49ers had been really good against the pass, and they had been pretty bad against the run, and so I expected them to play to their strengths there. I don't fault the play. Even the pass was low and away, but on target, good enough to go through Josh's hands. Josh Reynolds makes that catch more often than not. Today was just a not for him.
Yeah.
It's a tough way to end the season for Josh, who has been Mr. Reliable all season long.
Yeah.
To go out like that, and that's what people are going to remember. That's what people are like, yelling about on Twitter, and it's unfortunate. But I agreed with that play decision. I might have made a different call personally, but again, I don't really fault that one.
Yeah. And I think I'm mostly in the same boat. I mean, we were obviously talking about it in the moment, and I'm just like, I don't know. There is something alluring to me about going from a 2-point lead to a 3-point lead.
Yeah.
14 and 17 is a significant difference there. But again, in the moment, I'm just like, I understand this is a very difficult call. The Lions offense at that point in the game had still been on a roll, right? You score 24 points in the first half of a conference championship game, which I believe it ties a conference championship record for a road team to score 24 in the first half. And so you're probably feeling pretty good about the confidence level in your offense. And ultimately, I think that's a larger point to make about all of this is this offense has carried this team most of the year. Yeah. You have a lot of confidence in your offense. This is how you got to this moment, is Dan Campbell being aggressive in situations like that. And it's not always going to be right. It's not always going to be by the book. It's not always going to work. But as you know, I threw out that chart this week and it said, like, one of the reasons why the Lions might have an advantage is because they have an aggressive coaching staff. And if they convert one of these, they probably win the game, and we're all praising Dan Campbell for, following analytics. And that's the thing, too. Both of those decisions, if you follow Ben Baldwin's, little analytical bot, both said, like, this was a medium go-for-it situation. Not, like, a little bit go for it, not a ton go for it, but they were medium go for it. And so he followed, and that's not what Dan Campbell's doing. Like, he's not, doesn't have a little booklet that says, like, oh, go for it. So if people are upset that Dan Campbell's using analytics, that's not exactly what's happening either. He just has an inert aggressiveness that happens to align with analytics. And so, I don't know. We're going to talk about this forever. You can make your final points here. We don't, I guess, even need to get necessarily into the nitty-gritty of all this because everyone is going to talk about it, and we're all going to be sick of the topic in 48 hours. But
I think the second one was a lot more debatable for me.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was the least impactful, though, from a analytics standpoint.
Sure,
there wasn't as big of a swing with that one if you make it or miss it. But for me, I agree with you. I think you're trying to stop the bleeding. You're down 3. You've trusted that Badgley was going to hit from distance for you in the Rams game. I thought he would go to him again. Now, to his credit, though, Jake Moody had missed a 48 field goal in that same direction earlier in the game.
True.
And so he could have had that sitting in his head saying, man, their kicker missed it from this almost exact same distance.
Yeah.
I don't know if our kicker, who's not used to kicking here, how he's going to, do in that situation. And so I understand the decision. I might have taken a kick. I might have kicked though.
Yeah, because it feels like you're in a different situation now, right? We were just talking about how the offense was rolling when they're up 14 points. Maybe you just try to keep the good times rolling. Yeah. At this point, you are now losing.
Right.
Your offense has not scored a point in the entire second half. There's 7 minutes left in the game. It feels like, if you are one to believe in momentum, it feels like the momentum is not in your favor at this point. So take what you can get. But at the same time, given how well the 49ers are playing at that point, you make the field goal. What's to say the 49ers just don't go down there and take the 5 minutes, 6 minutes off the clock,
sure,
score a touchdown anyways,
sure,
and then you're in a similarly desperate situation.
And I think that very much came into play.
Yeah,
with what he wanted.
For sure.
Just to put a bow on this, Ben Solak did tweet out the expected points lost differential, and it was for the 4th and 3 to St. Brown that they didn't complete. That was a negative 2.6 in differential for expected points. Reynolds' 4th down drop was 3.2. The interception that hit Vildor in the face mask, and then Ayuk catches it. That was 3.3, and then the Gibbs fumble was 5.5. I'm sure location had a big factor in that, but that was the biggest swing point. Again, from an analytics standpoint, that was the biggest moment of the game, that Gibbs fumble.
Yeah, and that's ultimately what's going to cost this team. What did cost this team was the execution.
The turnover. Yeah.
It was the fumbling of the ball. It was the dropping of the couple passes. Josh Reynolds dropping a 4th and 3rd down pass. Amon-Ra dropped a pass, I believe, in this game.
He missed him. Yeah, and he missed Amon-Ra a couple times.
Right.
Like Goff, there was at least 2 throws that when he was rolling, he put low and behind his target. He was a little bit, when he got flushed, his accuracy declined.
Missed tackles turned out to be big in this game. If he has a sure sack that turns into a Brock Purdy, 10-yard scramble. Christian McCaffrey on the drive that took him, up 2 scores, had a long run towards the end of that with some more missed tackles. So defensively, it was a little bit sloppy. Offensively, there were obviously some game-changing plays, and so you put that all together and wrap it around in some 4th down decisions that people love to debate, and you're left with a pretty devastating loss here, and trying to pick up the pieces here. And I don't know, I wrote about it a lot in here, and it's tough. Like, as a fan, you're kind of in this weird spot that Dan Campbell was clearly battling with at the end of the game, where you want to be optimistic about the future, and there's so many reasons to be optimistic about the future. But the cruelness of the NFL is that you never know. You never know, and he tells his players, this could have been our only shot. And when you were that close, when you were 30 minutes away with a 3-score lead, it's hard to not just feel and live in that gut punch, even if you do believe with all your heart that the future is going to be bright, because you just don't know if the future is going to be bright.
No, I get that. And maybe it's just the optimist in me, but I look at the fact that this is a team that went head-to-head with the best team in the NFC and lost by 3 points after making mistake after mistake after mistake after mistake after mistake. And the game shouldn't have been maybe as close as it was. Yes, there's going to be coaching changes. Yes, there's going to be player changes. But the foundational core of the organization is intact. The core players are intact.
Sure.
The money's going to be there. The draft picks are going to be there. There is a 3-year history of those things, paying forward towards success for the Lions. And so, for me, it's not. I completely get you could get one shot at it and then not come back for 4 years. I get that. I look at the way that this organization is built. I look at the way that this organization has succeeded, and I look at when this team has had adversity in front of them, how they've battled it and how they've addressed it and how they've overcome it. And it makes me encouraged because they've shown me that they are more than just a one-year flash in the pan type of team. And again, I understand people saying, well, they didn't prove it. I get it. They haven't proved it. I have confidence that they will because of the outcomes that I've seen over the last 3 years based on the decisions that they've made. And it gives me a lot of encouragement that this can turn into a team that's like the team that we saw on the other side of the field today, that slowly built themselves into a contender and then added pieces and added pieces. And when you can add pieces through the draft and you build your youth and you build your core, you can establish a winner for years and years. And I do think a lot of how, like we talk about schematically, how they take they take things from the Rams and how organizationally they've taken things from the Saints. I really think that they've built their roster with the 49ers and the Ravens in mind. And a lot of their decisions mirror those that you see amongst both the 49ers and Ravens organizations. And those organizations have been pillars for a long time because of the steps that they take. And I look at this Lions organization and I say they're following the blueprint for what has worked. And it gives me confidence that they can continue to do moving forward.
Yeah, and I mean, it's obviously important to point out that this 49ers team, this was their third consecutive NFC championship game.
Right.
And it took them 3 times to get beyond it. It's not easy to not only get here, but get past here. And so, not that what the 49ers are doing is normal or what the Chiefs are doing on the opposite side of the conferences are doing is normal, or the Patriots. Like, that sort of stuff is tough. But
Sure.
It takes long, patient process, which we know the Lions are doing. It takes a certain amount of stability too, which is going to be the tricky part here, right? Because Dan Campbell isn't one of those play calling head coaches. He isn't the Kyle Shanahan. He isn't. I mean, you look around in a lot of these situations, he isn't an Andy Reid, right? And so that to me is the biggest challenge ahead, is maintaining this strong offense without Ben Johnson, because I don't know. To me, the writing seems on the wall in Washington. We'll see, but maintaining that sort of chemistry, right? It's not easy when you're changing your offensive coordinator. It's not going to be easy when you're. I mean, listen, they thought they had it in Anthony Lynn, and they found out that was wrong 6 months in.
8 months or 8 games.
Yeah, right. And so, like, there's no guarantee the next guy is going to be that guy, even if it's an internal hire. And so there's going to be a lot of change. And Dan said it himself, like, there's just so much that goes into building one of these teams. It isn't just about adding talent. It isn't just about getting the coach that everyone thinks is very good. It's about building some sort of chemistry and identity, and you have to constantly be changing. You have to be constantly working. You have to constantly be motivating. You know this team worked really, really hard this year, but you somehow got to find a way to get them to a next level and keep that hunger built into them that we know they had this year. But it's always a challenge, I think, to keep the intensity level that high year after year after year.
Sure.
Even if we can now see the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. We saw how close everyone was dreaming about Super Bowl tickets and all that sort of stuff. We saw that, but that, again, just seeing it in the future doesn't mean it becomes more attainable.
Yeah, but again, I think the core players on this team have a taste of this now, and they're the types of players that can use this as motivation. And when we talk to a lot of those core players in the locker room, some of them absolutely said, we're going to look at this and we know what it needs, we know what it takes, and we've got a taste, and we don't want to taste this, defeat again. And so we can take that, bottle it up, store it, remember it, and then use that as motivation moving forward. But then, but they're also saying things like, we have to go to work. Like Ali McNeil, we have to go to work every day, nonstop. And so it's the veterans like Taylor Decker that are talking about harnessing the feeling and trying to turn it into a positive, and then the younger guys like Aleem, who are I have to work mentality, and I don't think it's just lip service.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Well, that's a top-down thing too, right? Like, they're never going to lose that because that's who Dan Campbell is.
Right. And that's what he said. He said, you don't know when you're going to get back here. And that's not by mistake. He said that to them to motivate them for for the future, in my opinion. Like, he wants them to go into the offseason hungry and not reflecting and resting on their laurels and saying, boy, what a great season. We did a great job. He wants them going in and saying, I have to work out. I have to do this. I have to stay in shape. And the sad part of the business is there's going to be players that are good people that we've like and that fans like and that aren't going to be re-signed. And then there are other new faces that are going to come in that are going to be encouraging and we'll give the fan base hope. And it's going to be a roller coaster of an off season, I'm sure, like always. But the draft is in Detroit, and there's something to look forward to. And so I know the seasons. The season has come to its conclusion, but there are exciting moments coming down the pipe. Because look, as much like the draft or not, that's going to be an exciting time of year, and there's going to be exciting moments ahead. You know what I mean? Like, it's going to be a festival of fun for people in the city. It's going to bring attention to the city. There's going to be the next 6 months are going to be. They're going to be a lot of fun. Like, they're in a lot of different ways. They are. Whether you can be Scrooge, you can be Scrooge all you want. Yeah. But it's there's going to be another opportunity. I think what the draft is going to bring is an opportunity to really reflect and celebrate. And I think being a couple months away is going to allow people to kind of remove themselves from the heartbreak that they have right now, and they'll be able to be, the city will be getting accolades and the team will be getting appreciation. And I think hopefully if you're feeling down on the team and not so optimistic, I think by the time that rolls around in late April, we might have a totally different perspective on this team, because when you really think back and reflect on what they have accomplished, all the records, all the curses that were broke, all the obstacles that they overcame, all those dumb things that we never have to hear about again, like they haven't won a playoff game. Like, that's great. It was a great season, and it was a tough way to lose. But man, what a ride! It was a fun ride this season.
And the whole thing that I wrote about at the top of this is about, like, this is the price you pay for being a good football team, and it's kind of part of the fun, right? Is like, you get so close to the top of the mountain, and only one team is going to walk away happy every year. And sorry to say, it's not going to be the Lions most years, even moving forward. We're hoping we're going to get one every now and then, but most likely you're not. And because you're playing such good teams, they're usually going to be heartbreaking fashions. How do you think Ravens fans are feeling today, who didn't even put up a damn fight? And so, part of the fun is the hurt. And I know that sounds weird to say, and it sounds masochistic of me to say, and it probably is a little masochistic of me. But it's so, and again, this is a lot of what I wrote at the top here, is just like, this is so much better than the years of feeling nothing. Like, what memories do you have from 2000 to 2018? Anything? Like, the stakes were never high enough to really hurt me, and there was never anything good or exciting happening. I will take the high highs and the low lows over basically the last 30 years of Lions football. And so it sucks. It hurts in the moment. You hate the act of actually going through losing a 17-point lead in the NFC Championship game, but it's what we signed up for. It's what we were waiting for, is to have the stakes this high, and sometimes getting the rug pulled out from underneath you. But we haven't really talked much about this game, and I know we're already pushing like 24 minutes here, but
it's big picture.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that's really that's where we're at. Like,
but I think I'm just like, it distracted me, because in the middle of you talking, I'm looking and I'm like, holy crap, the Lions rushed for 182 yards. Holy crap, Sam Laporta almost had 100 yards. Amon-Ra almost had 90 yards. 2 JMO touchdowns today, and the Lions lost. Like, how does all of that happen in one game? You get an interception from Brock Purdy.
The Niners have only given up 31 points twice. Well, this was the third time.
Yeah.
They just don't give up points. I talked earlier. I think I talked on this last week, and then we talked about it on the midweek mailbag. That 24 was that magic number for me. I wrote about it in the Keys to Victory. I thought whoever like that, if you could keep them at 24, that was like the way to go. And unfortunately, they got over 24, and it's tough. It's tough to keep them down. Like, because look,
I mean, it happened to the Packers last week, right? The Packers dominated the first half. They looked like they were going to win that game.
I mean, Lions scored 31 last week, and then they scored 31 again. Like, we talked about the defense shedding yards, and we said if the defense can shed yards but keep them to 24, the offense can score 31, and we were right on the offense because the offense scored 31.
Yeah.
That it's that maybe it was the turnover, maybe in the basically the red zone, or maybe it was X, Y, or Z. But it's I think it's a handful of all of it, right? But the offense just didn't have that last little oomph.
Yeah. And really the defense didn't either, right?
Right.
That last drive, if you hold them to a field goal instead of a touchdown there, maybe you get an opportunity to go back there and win the ball game. But I think that's probably going to do it here from Santa Clara, not San Francisco. Teams play in your city. The Lions have done that. They fixed that. All right. I don't know. It's late. We got a flight to catch in
6 hours.
7 hours. We'll be back in Detroit, obviously, with all of your post-game coverage. We will have Pride of Detroit Direct. We'll continue to go in the offseason, probably not as much as you're getting right now, but we will continue to do more things here, and we'll let you know about all that when we get there. But until then, appreciate you guys joining us on this journey. I hope you guys had as much fun as we did week in and week out, and it didn't end the way we wanted it to, but let's hope those big things are still ahead. So for Eric, I'm Jeremy. Appreciate you all your support. Go Lions. We'll see you next time.